that we've talked about before is the makeup of this jury.
Mhm.
And specifically, you've talked about how the jury makeup really reflected the country. And what do you mean by that? How did it do that?
We had young, old, male, female, white, black, just the way people dressed and presented themselves. You could tell you had all economic classes there. I mean, this jury was America. It reflected our area, our county. It reflected different philosophies. The only thing that we had in common is that we were all sitting in that room. This jury was incredibly disciplined. We were given instructions on day one not to talk to anybody, and you would see jurors actively avoid each other in the hallways. We didn't want to, or we'd walk out to our cars together, but very superficial conversations. And we were dying to talk. You could just see it, you know, people were on, we'd go in there on break time, and you could tell people wanted to talk, but we wanted to respect the process. And when they said talk, wow. The first thing we had to do, when they took us back in after closing arguments, first thing we had to do was elect a foreman, and that was my job. And then I suggested that before we start deliberations, because the bailiff told us that when you hit 9, I need to know. 9 out of 12. And apparently in a civil case, you don't need a unanimous verdict, you just need 9. He said, so when you hit 9, hit the button on the wall and let me know. I said, fine. So I said to the group, I said, why don't we just take our temperature and see where we are with this? And they said, sure. So the initial vote count was 7 for the plaintiff. 7 of us felt that Keith had been discriminated against, 3 undecided, and 1 for the defense. And 1 abstained because that person works for St. Louis County Courts. We gave everyone in the group complete room to say whatever they wanted to say. And it was somewhere, and believe me, it did not take long. It was less than 30 minutes. I was thinking about that again this morning, that it was less than 30 minutes, could have been as few as 15. But what was interesting is we decided on verdict 2 first because it was a clearer case for us. In fact, many of the jurors, the female jurors, processed it as bullying, not just retaliation, but it was an example of how to bully people. We viewed this as a real civil rights issue. The county treated it as a nuisance suit, which was part of the thing that worked against them is their attitude toward this case. It became very obvious even from the start that it was just a nuisance thing. Let's get rid of this thing and move on and get back to county business. We didn't see it that way. We viewed this as a civil rights case. It took less than a half an hour, you know, maybe closer to 15 minutes. And then we spent most of the time figuring out how much money we were going to give them. It came to assigning the dollar amount. Russ Riggin, in his closing, took the $165,000 that Keith said was actual damage for him. And I thought a lot of thought went into that number. I mean, he just didn't pick it out of the air. He was looking at missed pay, projected loss, and so forth. And to me, as a businessman, that made tremendous sense. But then Russ said, you can give him that and then any multiple of that. So if you feel he deserves twice that amount, then you give him a multiple of 2 and so forth. So that gave us a little bit of guidance. So we began with verdict number 2 because, again, we knew if we got number 2 down, number 1 would be easier. So we said, okay, we think that $165,000 plus a multiple of 5 got us up to, what, 980, whatever, 990,000, whatever that number was shy of $1 million. And then came punitive damage. And we were crystal clear on punitive damage. Our attitude was that punitive damages are designed specifically to punish and send a message. The county ought to be glad that it stopped at $20 million because we had some members of the jury that would have taken that number higher if we would have gone down that path.
$20 million.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot.
A lot of taxpayer money.
A lot of our money.
Yes. Do you have any regrets?
None. No. In fact, there were so many things said in the jury room on day 5, when it was our turn to talk to each other, that number one, this is our police department. We're county residents. This is our police department. These are our police officers. These are our employees as county residents, and we have to take care of our employees. The punitive damages, part of it was going to Keith, but part of it was a message to everyone else who's ever been bullied in a workplace like that. We wanted to send that message. We knew it was strong. In fact, one of the last member to sign out on the verdict waited until the very last minute to sign the verdict sheet because he was concerned with the amount of money. And I said, look, we've hit our number. We've got more than enough to go through here. And I was told as jury foreman, when you hit that number, let us know, which I did. And I said, I don't want to push you. You can go either way. It's totally your choice. You have to feel comfortable. And I said, but I do need to let them know that we've hit the threshold. And I said, but it'll be a few minutes before they come in. So you've got time to decide. And before the bailiff came back then to get the verdict sheet, the signed sheets, he said, I want to be a part of this. So it was his decision on his own. But he represented what I would call a necessary reluctance to award that amount of money. We knew it was our money. We knew it was the county's money, but we have to take care of our police officers. These were our police officers. These are our county leaders. They work for us. The defense's testimony on Thursday was compelling, but as it turned out, it was the most impressive display of liars I've ever seen in my life. And why do I say that? Well, the Perry Mason moment on day 5 blew it away. When that happened, I looked at juror number 3. I don't know her name. She looked at me. We both rolled our eyes, and we knew at that moment it was a done deal. But then we also discovered later on Friday that at least 2 of the sergeants that had told their stories on Thursday had lied as well in depositions. So when I say a parade of liars, that's what I'm talking about. This was a group of people who had a very coherent and consistent story to tell, but there was something in the nonverbals. I was big on the nonverbals in this trial, and there was something nonverbally, I don't know that they believed everything they said. And I saw it, and I think that's where the cognitive dissonance came from, was that we were hearing one thing, but something doesn't make sense here. And we talked a lot about that in a jury room. And I was not the only one that felt there was a whole lot of lying going on Thursday. I was kind of surprised that Keith got his white shirt as quickly as he did. I'm glad that he did, and I'm glad that the police department has made a movement to create that division now that he's in charge of. That was too little too late. If he would have gotten that white shirt 6 months ago, I'd be doing something else today. You would, and we wouldn't have been there in that courthouse. So for me, I'm glad he got that. He deserved it. He deserved it before the trial. He certainly deserved it after the trial. I would want to believe that the county is trying to make this thing right rather than just doing some CYA. I would want to believe that. I would want to believe that the chief has learned his lesson. I want to believe that, and I guess we'll see.
There has been talk of Prop P money being used to
Yeah.
pay this settlement. What are your thoughts on that?
That would be horrible. Prop P, as I understood it, was put in place to help police officers earn more, give them greater resources to work with. When voters passed Prop P, we didn't vote to use that as a slush fund to take care of their dirt.